I Married a Witch is a 1942 American romantic comedy directed by Renee Clare with screenplays done by Robert Pirosh and Mark Connolly. The film is based off the 1941 novel The Passionate Witch by Thorne Smith. I don't own the novel, so don't expect me to make many comparisons, though I will briefly touch on the author's history and what his novel influenced. We begin long, long ago, when people still believed in witches, and they're serious in that belief as they've just finished burning one. Next up is her father, after a short intermission. We have snacks to sell. One man in the crowd is Jonathan Woolley, who is responsible for outing the witch and warlock. He saw her and she chased him into some haystacks. There, she cursed him and his bloodline. They even put an oak tree over their ashes to keep them trapped. But curses are like products with receipts. You need the store to still be in business so you can return them.
Nancy, control yourself. Control yourself.
Drop your hand, Samuel Woolley. I wish to throw this face.
Master Woolley, did you hear that war? Where is the nearest recruiting office?
Oh, running off to war like a coward.
We then skip ahead to Wallace Woody, played by Frederick March, who is having the real tough discussion with his fiancée, Estelle Masterson, played by Susan Hayward.
I'm not talking about the whole house at the moment. It's that living room.
But hey, when you're in the public eye, you need to keep up appearances. This is J.B. Masterson, played by Robert Warwick. He's behind this wedding and throwing his influence in as a bargaining chip to Wallace. His bargaining points may be lacking, but he maxed out luck.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's just a storm. Ladies and gentlemen, while at the moment the future seems a little dark, well, you see, one never knows what the next moment will bring.
Speaking of luck, a flash of lightning frees the spirits of our burned witch and warlock. Now, the effect isn't anything super impressive, but it is rather charming in its simplicity. What's not so simple is the modern slang.
What's knitting, kitten? You like to cut a rug?
Let's ditch these ickies. How about going to heaven in your jalopy?
That's solid, Jackson. Now you're cooking on the front burner.
What language is that, Father?
I don't know, but we'll learn it.
Good thing they didn't wake during the age of jive. Even I needed subtitles for that scene in Airplane. In their smoke forms, we can see they hide in bottles, and still have a few tricks to pull.
Riddle-dee-dee, riddle-dee-do, get the Hensons, come nine do.
Catching up with the Woolley descendant, they see just how miserable he is.
Posters at a private party. The whole marriage is just another campaign stunt to him, insisting we hold it the day before the election, so that I'll get a good publicity break on election day.
Wallace, I think you've had enough to drink.
Now, Estelle...
I'd like to go home.
Yes, dear. Can we drop you, Dudley?
Yes, thanks.
The curse is working. She has the look of a shrew.
Some might say the film has aged in parts, but the humor is still there, and it's still enjoyable. Also, that's Dudley, played by Robert Benchley. Seems that even being smoked in a bottle, the witch's old man gets drunk on whiskey, and she's able to convince him to give her a body. The key, it would seem, is heat, and what better way to get heat than to start a fire? Woolley and his fiancée are forced to stop, and he starts asking how this bizarre fire started.
Hello, Mr. Woolley.
Hello.
Don't get too close. I got a bet riding on you.
How did it happen, Alan?
Nobody seems to know. There's an explosion on the roof. The top floor went like that. Then the fifth, then the fourth. Now it's on the third. Pretty soon it'll be on the second, and then the first. Then it'll all cave in on the basement.
What's so funny?
It's fully insured, and I love building new things. I want to build it in a classic Gothic design. Don't you love Gothic, huh?
A voice only he can hear starts calling to him. With no resistance, he rushes into the towering inferno. He traverses the smoke with the aid of the voice calling to him. He manages to find a safe room for the time, and we get our first look at the witch, Jennifer, played by Veronica Lake, who is asking the real questions.
Not bad. I'm a blonde. Would you rather I be a brunette?
If you don't get out of this fire, you'll be a redhead.
Things go bad the worse as the building continues to collapse and traps them in the room. Well, unless you count that convenient door behind the changing rack. Rushing outside, Wooly is greeted by a camera flash and cheers from the crowd. Not everyone is happy, as at the hospital, Estelle is her usual self.
I hope she's all right.
It's only natural for you to be concerned.
Now, Estelle, I've told you a dozen times. There's no point in you... Well?
It's amazing. Not a scratch on her. Not a burn.
You must be relieved.
Dudley, you've known me all my life.
She never met Wally before. The girl's suffering from delusions.
You see? She has delusions.
Well, I haven't.
Well, Estelle, you must believe me.
Listen to me.
I've never seen her before. I'll never see her again.
She's so angry that later when they get home, she leaves to, I think, another home. Imagine owning 2 homes. But there's a special guest at this one, waiting upstairs.
What, the hospital?
I didn't like it there.
How did you get here?
You wouldn't believe me if I told you.
She's happy and flirtatious as usual, but the sight of Jonathan catches her eye. She almost manages to win over Wooly, but he quickly controls himself and carries her out of the room.
Where are you taking me, Wally?
We're going out.
Night, Jonathan.
Huh, I guess that's one variation of spinning in your grave. Catching the eye of a cop and putting her in a taxi, he shoos her off with whatever money he can muster. As you can figure, this doesn't work, and she gives the driver a slip. Dudley can't believe she showed up here, but the two manage to piece together what must be going on.
Think of the scandal the night before your wedding.
Dudley, that's it, the election. That girl was sent here by the opposition. They're trying to frame me.
Well, the opposition is closer to home than expected. This leads to a lot of back and forth, with Veronica having a laugh at him trying to piece together who she's working for. But damn if that conspiracy talk doesn't make time fly, as by the next time he looks at the clock, it's 8 o'clock in the morning the next day. In addition, the maid has arrived.
But the sun shines on. Good morning.
That smells good.
Waffles only serve to increase the time consumption of conspiracy with syrup. And those who interrupt waffle time are heretics in their own right.
People waiting? Who? Who are they?
You'll find out.
Excuse me.
More waffles? There's no more batter.
Anyways, the people downstairs are Estelle and her father, here to inform Wooly he's front page news with the fire and has an interview set up. Estelle wants to head upstairs, but for once, Wooly shows a bit of backbone.
I'm going to stay here a while. I want to see what I can do about brightening up this antique shop. The photographers will be here right after the wedding.
Dear, there's no time for that.
Run along.
Now, Estelle, I'm a little on edge. I mean, with the wedding at noon. I'd feel much better if you came along. Yeah, that's a good girl.
With them gone, we see that even witches from the 1600s love slides. Well, freeze the maid and start to ponder why the plan of seduction isn't working. With some suggestion from her father, the two get to work potion crafting.
Kettle on the hob, hurry up and do my job.
Steam and hiss, and while you do, cook an all-compelling brew.
So that he who sips will be slave to love's captivity.
Now put in a cool place until ready.
Later that day, Wooly comes back talking about some fire at the radio station. I'm sure that won't matter. Besides, that girl is still up in the room, and he needs to kick her out. Oh, but you were in another fire. You should drink this perfectly safe water. Last guy to have one of her drinks ended up fine.
You'll find out that no one named Wooly is able to stay away from me.
Oh, I'm awfully sorry.
But oh no, head trauma. We all know it's fixed by water, so drink up. My man Wooly just doubled down in ways he never expected. As they drive off, an ambulance vehicle hauling a corpse just stops, and out comes Daniel, played by Cecil Kellaway. He is dismayed to hear this turn of events, but hatches a second plan to get back at Wooly. Oh, and get ready to hear the opening lines of this song, because they play it a lot as it keeps getting interrupted. Fleeing upstairs, Wooly and Dudley are surprised by Jennifer and her father. Dudley stands guard outside while Daniels reveals he brought along Wooly's revolver, not to harm him, but to have Wooly shoot him.
I'm going to shoot you.
Will that be of help?
No. Father knows best.
We then get one of the best incantations of this film.
Pistol, pistol, let there be murder in the first degree. Thank you so much. Amusing invention, the electric chair. What will they think of next?
Well, this is going horrible. We have a bitchy bride-to-be going nuts at a ramshackle of a wedding, one corpse alongside a freshly fired revolver, Dudley, who was outside during all of it, and a woman high on her own supply. I'm sure this will all have some sort of reasonable explanation to the cops.
It was an accident.
It was no accident. He killed me in cold blood. Kindly notify the authorities.
Jennifer calls out to her father and finds him hiding. Well, you got 5 more shots, so might as well use them.
Now you get back in that body.
No, I didn't like it. It's an old fat body.
Then I'll tell Wally what we are.
Knowing what would then happen to you?
Yes.
You wouldn't dare.
Wouldn't I?
Turns out he was doing some shots of his own while inside that bottle. Well, the father is out of the picture as the local cops manage to get a hand on his drunken butt. More back and forth, more seduction, more goofs, and one increasingly frustrated bride all culminate when Dudley and Wooly believe Jennifer to be dead.
Love me. She said she'd die for me. Oh, my darling.
At last.
Oh,
I've had enough of this.
All the major players suddenly storming into the room goes about as well as one could expect, and the duo flee. While the papers tear him apart, the two get out into the countryside. Getting stuck in a fog proves little trouble to Jennifer, as it leads them to what I suppose is a bed and breakfast. Only problem is, they have one room. You are married, aren't you?
Let's see. $1 for waking up the county clerk and helping you get your license. $2 for the ceremony. $1.50 for lodgings. Rent of my pajamas, 25 cents.
Well, now seems like a good time to admit the truth, but darn it, he just doesn't believe her. He even missed how she started the fire without matches. But surely if she keeps trying, he'll hear her story of witchcraft out.
You're not listening to me.
yes, dear, yes, I am.
270 years ago. I'll tell you tomorrow.
While her mind is getting foggy through love, her father's is foggy through alcohol, consumption that he still hasn't gotten over. Well, Wooly is here to pay a visit and to question Daniel about this witchcraft. She keeps going on about her being a witch, you being a warlock, and how her magic can make me win the election.
First, I thought she was joking, but she keeps talking about the election, saying she'll make me win by witchcraft, and that'll prove she's a witch.
I mean, it isn't that outlandish. We've had the dead cast votes for president, so why not some witchcraft for governor? The win is such a shock it convinces both Dudley and Wooly that she must be a witch, even though she just wants to be a good housewife.
Well, good night, old man. Good night.
Oh, where are you going?
Oh, it's late. I gotta be getting home. Into my straitjacket.
Would you like me to drive you?
No, thanks. I'll call a broom. I mean a taxi.
Eventually, she says one of the most memorable lines in this film.
You don't mind my being a witch, do you?
You'll admit it's a little unusual.
No one need ever know.
Going outside to address the gathered crowd, Daniel appears to punish Jennifer. He starts by taking her powers away. Well, I suppose you could always reclass into a bard. Scared, she takes Wooly and they flee to a cab. But wait, the cab is instead piloted by Daniel, and I do mean piloted as it takes flight. But flight was achieved in 1903, so he crashes it into an oak tree. Somehow they survive this, and Daniel is there to drag Jennifer back with empty promises she dies, or leaves the body depending on your point of view. The two spirits watch him grieve while Daniel gives in to his alcoholism and gets plastered. With this distraction, she slips back into her body and seals away her father's. Now that's a spirit. In the future, it's shown they live happily with children, some more inclined to witchcraft, but at least good old dad is locked away. I couldn't find a budget for this film, but it grossed $312,700 between the US and Canada. I'm not sure if IMDb adjusted for modern currency values or not. Filming was done in Los Angeles and in studio lots, which, if you aren't aware, is on the other side of the country from where the film supposedly takes place. Another location problem came down to the witch burning. We did hangings and stone pressings. The Europeans did witch burnings. But anyways, the film was first released 30th of October 1942 in the USA. Its latest release is, surprisingly, Poland, 25th of June 2022, as a TV release. This film was in fact purchased from Paramount to United Artists when they, United Artists, lacked enough films to put out. Meanwhile, Paramount had a surplus. Now, the novel was written by Thorne Smith, who passed away in 1934. The novel was finished and published by Smith's friend, Norman Matson, who also wrote a sequel. Now, with the film coming together is where we start hitting problems. The original working title of the film was He Married a Witch. A man named Preston Sturges came on as a producer at the suggestion of the director. Dalton Trumbo would write the script. Another writer, Robert Piroche, was brought in to assist with writing the script. Eventually, Trumbo would leave, citing clashes with Sturges, who himself would leave shortly before the film was finished after butting heads with the director. Ultimately, it came down to Claire, the director, and Robert Piroche to finish the script. But that's just behind-the-scenes drama. Seems Miss Lake had a tendency to be looked down upon by her co-stars. This project was no different. Joel McCrea was originally cast as Wooly, but declined, saying he didn't want to work with Lake after troubles the two had on Sullivan's Travels. That would postpone production, but would allow Lake to be in the film, The Glass Key. Frederick March himself had troubles with her. March seems to have started things by saying, in reference to Lake, a brainless little blonde sexpot, void of any acting ability. This led to Lake retorting that March was a pompous poser. This then escalated to practical jokes being pulled, such as Lake hiding a 40-pound weight under her dress when March was to carry her, and in one scene during a waist-up shot, she apparently put her foot in his crotch. Some say kicked, but if the take was used, the man has an impeccable poker face. There's also her biography, Peekaboo, which claims the reason for the mutual hatred was that Lake refused March's sexual advances. None of this has been proven, but March did refer to the film as I Married a Bitch. Of course, lending some credit to Lake is that it was the crew who helped her prank him. Seems they weren't fond of the man either. Not to stick on the subject, but in 2009, a close friend of Renee Clare and actress Leslie Carson wrote in her autobiography that Clare was fond of Lake. Quote, "The trouble with her is she didn't have confidence in herself. Nothing could convince her that she was beautiful. It was a fight every morning to get her to face the camera." But in the end, this film seems to have cemented itself as a classic. It's included in the American Film Institute's 2000 list of the 500 movies nominated for the top 100 funniest American movies, as well as the American Film Institute's 2002 list of 400 movies nominated for the top 100 America's greatest love story movies. The film would see a re-release on VHS by Warner Home Video in the USA, July 18, 1990. Then again, it would be released on Blu-ray by Criterion Collection, October 8, 2013. This film, and to an extent its novel, would go on to inspire the TV show Bewitched. This film isn't the type to normally grace my channel. That being said, romance is often an element of the films I review, and since this is part comedy, I do find it enjoyable, even for those inclined not to enjoy more drama-focused films of this kind. The special effects don't come off as impressive, but more so charming, and that isn't in a bad way, as I have nothing bad to say about them. The writing is honestly where this film shines. The wit is able to get a chuckle out of just about anyone, and the story is rather harmless. While I often review films that tend to be more graphic or feature adult elements, this is a fine film to put on for kids on a family night. I mean, I enjoyed it. Of course, what can I say? There's just some things that are good to look at.
Dudley has the ring. I'll see what's keeping him. Wallace.
You come back here. What's the matter with you?
Did you ever have one of those days when just nothing seems to go right?
Wallace!
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.